Chapter 10, The Selection Battle. Zixue gazed deeply into my eyes and said, "Of course I'm willing, but father only has my sister and me as daughters. Unless it's absolutely necessary, let's not take that step, okay? For my sake, can you just tolerate him a little longer?" I sighed helplessly and responded, "Gaining strength is inevitable for me, but entering the court to become an official is something I'm reluctant to do. I have many difficulties." Zixue softly said, "Do what you want. I won't force you. Didn't you say that if all else fails, we can still?" I took Zixue's hand and said, "Thank you, Zixue. With your words, I'm at ease. I can't possibly serve as an official under the Dragon God, especially since I have Beastman blood. Moreover, I'm a spy." Over the next month, in order to genuinely compete with Liwa, I reduced the time spent with Zixue, immersing myself completely in training. Zixue was understanding of this. In today's society, there isn't a woman who wouldn't want her lover to be the strongest. Finally, on the eve of the competition, I successfully broke through the second layer of the Wild God Decree and mastered the second form of the Wild God Fist dominance overall. The rate of improvement in my Sky Demon Decree was astonishing. I had almost completed the third layer. However, here I encountered an obstacle. No matter how hard I tried, breaking through seemed impossible. It was even more difficult than when I first cultivated the Wild God Decree. Time wasn't on my side anymore, the competition was looming. Teacher Zhuang stood on the podium and addressed the class. "The day after tomorrow, the Academy's martial arts competition will begin. I will now determine our participants. Those willing, please raise your hands." Perhaps everyone knew their own limits, only 5 hands went up. They belonged to me, Feng Wen, Feng Wan, Huixing, and Luo Lei. What surprised me most was Huixing. With his abilities, surpassing Feng Wen and Feng Wan was improbable, unless he teamed up with his brother. Still, he wished to participate. Luo Lei hadn't been idle this semester. After losing the top spot to me, he trained furiously, making rapid progress. Teacher Zhuang smiled and said, "Since 5 students wish to compete, let's have an internal selection first. And everyone will be the judges." Feng Wan stood up and stated, "Teacher, since I'm the class leader, shouldn't I be exempted? After all, I'm the top student. Let the other 4 compete, and the winner can join me." Teacher Zhuang replied, "I'm afraid that won't do. After a semester of hard work, everyone has improved to varying degrees. I hope the 5 of you can compete fairly." With a disgruntled expression, Feng Wan asked, "Then what do you suggest?" Teacher Zhuang explained, "I've decided on the contest categories: strength, speed, and endurance. Your classmates will score you. The maximum score for each category is 100. The top 2 cumulative scorers will represent our class in the competition." Any objections? No one protested. Especially Feng Wan, who was confident in her strength and speed. Teacher Zhuang announced, "If everyone agrees, then meet at training ground for this afternoon." It was the same training ground where I had my first injury. Shortly after lunch, all students from the 4th class of Magic Warriors assembled. Teacher Zhuang declared, "The competition begins soon. Contestants, step forward. First up, the test of strength." Feng Wan confidently stepped up, clearly determined to win this round. She addressed the teacher, "How do we compete?" Teacher Zhuang gestured with both hands, drawing a golden hexagram in the air. As it settled on the ground, 5 large iron spheres, each over 2 meters in diameter, appeared. Teacher Zhuang explained, "This strength contest measures the energy you can unleash in an instant. Damage your sphere as much as possible with a single strike. If you drive it into the ground, it won't count. You must inflict damage to the sphere itself. I'll calculate the damage rate. The one who causes the most damage wins. Clear?" We all responded, "Understood." Feng Wan eagerly said, "Let me go first." Teacher Zhuang smiled and nodded, saying, "All right, you can start." Feng Wan tightened her grip on the large hammer in her hands and walked over to the iron ball. She stretched her limbs and began swinging her hammer, which seemed weightless in her hands. In just a few moments, she moved so fast she became a blur. Suddenly, she leapt into the air and shouted, "Giant hammer tornado strike." The shadow of her swing struck the iron ball with the speed of lightning. There was a thunderous boom, leaving everyone temporarily deafened. Though the protective barrier wasn't broken, the large iron ball was now halved. Strangely, despite such tremendous force, the ball wasn't driven into the ground. It was indeed impressive. Only I saw clearly. When Fengwan rose into the air, she emitted a burst of energy beneath the iron ball, essentially lifting it. That's why the ball was impacted in such a way. But because the force was dispersed, the ball wasn't damaged further. Teacher Zhuang exclaimed in surprise, "50% damage, Fengwan, you did well." Fengwan, with sweat on her temples indicating the effort she just exerted, proudly replied, "Of course, teacher. I earned my top position through strength." Mention her size, and she gets winded. Quite something. Teacher Zhuang asked, "Who's next?" Huixing said, "Teacher, let me." He then unsheathed his sword and approached. I turned to Huixing's brother and asked, "Has your brother gone mad? Doesn't he know his own strength?" Watching his younger brother, Huixing replied, "He's been through a lot recently and has mastered a new technique. He might not win, but he will surely surprise you. Just watch." Huixing, more serious than usual, approached another test iron ball. He closed his eyes, held his sword with both hands, and chanted, "Great fire god, burn the fire elements around me and let the endless flames be my armor." Red flames began to circle around him, growing more intense by the moment. Standing there, Huixing looked like a deity of fire. Suddenly, Huixing shouted, "Break the chains, flame of light." The red flames turned white, shining as brightly as if he were casting a spell of light. Huixing opened his eyes, which were filled with a captivating radiance. Slowly, he raised his seemingly lightweight sword, which looked incredibly heavy in his hands. I clearly saw his sweat evaporating into the white flames. Puzzled, I said, given Huixing's power level, he shouldn't be able to control such intense flames. Huixing leaned in and whispered, "My brother possesses our family's heirloom, the fire avoidance charm, which protects him. It allows him to safely use higher-level magic. Keep this a secret." "Why are you telling me this?" I asked. "I'm his current opponent." With a small smile, Huixing replied, "We're brothers. Why keep secrets? He's just showing off. After this, he won't have the strength for more. He wants to prove himself. He's always been competitive." Huixing finally raised his sword above his head and, with a leap and a shout of luminous flame slash, a ray of white light slashed from his sword, splitting the iron ball in front of him in two. I commented to Huixing, "That move is impressive, very powerful. But it takes too long to prepare. If we were fighting, I'd never give him a chance to use it." Relying on his sword to hold himself up, an out-of-breath Huixing asked, "Teacher, what percentage is that?" Teacher Zhuang, with mouth agape in amazement, responded, "Huixing, I didn't know you could use such powerful magic. You broke the barrier and halved the iron ball. That's 100%. Huixing, a look of triumph on his face, then fainted. Huixing rushed over to help him. Fengwan remarked sarcastically, overconfident. He should have conserved his energy. If I had gone all out, I could have easily achieved 100% as well. It was Fang's turn. He employed the spiral sword technique he had once used against me. He pierced the iron ball's protective barrier but couldn't damage the ball itself. Still, since the barrier was broken, Teacher Zhuang awarded him 80%. Luo Lei went next. Somehow, he had obtained a new spear, even superior to his old one. His approach was similar to Fang's, but his magic wasn't as refined, and his current level of lightning magic wasn't effective in this test. He left only a hole in the ball without breaking the barrier, earning a score of 30% from Teacher Zhuang. Finally, it was my turn. Naturally, I approached the last iron ball. Standing before it, I activated my Wild God Dueling Aura, which had reached the second layer. With a slight jump, I positioned myself directly above the ball and gently slapped it down, a move I learned from my father-in-law. Although in the past, my attacks were earth-shattering, which felt great, it never seemed as elegant as his. Hence, I changed my approach today. The ball, seemingly light under my hand, was effortlessly pressed into the ground. Phoenix Oriole burst into laughter, exclaiming, "Handsome, brute strength won't work. I bet you didn't even achieve 1% damage." Merely looking at her annoyed me. I glared at her and coldly retorted, "Shut your mouth and watch." Her initial urge to retort was quelled by the sight before her. The iron ball I pressed into the ground exploded instantaneously. A thunderous boom left a gaping hole in the training ground. The ball had vanished, leaving only scattered metal shards. The technique I used was like a storm, condensing my aura and striking from above, causing the explosion from beneath. It was no surprise the ball shattered under the pressure of my aura. I sneered at Phoenix Oriole, "Which is harder, this meatball?" I motioned to her, "or the iron ball?" Terrified by my imposing power, she quickly replied, "The iron ball is harder, definitely the iron ball." I grunted in satisfaction and rejoined the group. Master Zhuang, looking at me as if I were a creature from a different world, announced, "Lei Xiang, 100% destruction." Huixing, attending to his passed-out brother, commented, "Lei, you've become so much more powerful." I replied nonchalantly, "Strength has always been my forte. What's so special about that?" Master Zhuang announced, "The first round of tests is over. Huixing and Lei Xiang are tied for first place, both with 100% destruction. Fengwen is third with 80%, Phoenix Oriole fourth with 50%, and Luo Lei fifth with 30%. Unless there are any objections, the first round scores will be based on the percentage of destruction." Phoenix Oriole, unsatisfied with not scoring high in her area of expertise and wary of my presence, knew she had to compete for another spot. Even though Huixing also scored full marks in the first round, his condition meant he probably couldn't compete in subsequent rounds. So, she targeted Fengwen, who had a 30-point lead on her. Determination brewed within her. Master Zhuang declared, "Now, the second round, a race of speed. The distance from here to the academy gate is just under 1,000 meters. The one to complete 3 laps the fastest wins. Who would volunteer to oversee the finish line?" Luo Lei, seemingly resigned after witnessing my strength, offered, "Master, I'll withdraw from the competition and oversee the finish." Master Zhuang nodded, "Since you wish to withdraw, you can monitor the finish line." The remaining 3 of us stood at the starting line. At Master Zhuang's signal, 3 figures shot forward like arrows. Fengwen led the pack, with Phoenix Oriole closely behind. I trailed last, activating my flying technique to lighten my body. Despite this, I couldn't match Fengwen's wind magic or Phoenix Oriole's surprising speed given her stature and weight. The 3 laps ended swiftly. Fengwen naturally scored 100 points, Phoenix Oriole 80, and I, a mere 50. After 2 rounds, Fengwen led with 180 points, I had 150, and Phoenix Oriole had 130. For the final round focusing on endurance, Master Zhuang stated, "For fairness, I've invited third-year magic warrior students for this test." He then drew a small hexagram in the air, a basic spatial magic for close communication. "Third-year students? How will they test us?" Soon, 9 individuals entered. All seemed competent. Master Zhuang explained, "These are third-year seniors. They will test you. They've been handpicked for balanced skills, ensuring fairness." Fengwen inquired, "Master, how will our seniors test us?" Master Zhuang replied, "Simple. Each of you will face attacks from 3 seniors. The one who lasts the longest wins." Stunned, I thought, 3 against 1, and there are seniors? Trust Master Zhuang to come up with this. Master Zhuang declared, "Let's begin. To keep things fair, all groups will start simultaneously." Holding a large iron hammer in her hand, Fengwen shouted loudly and charged forward. Her fearless momentum genuinely startled the 3 senior students assigned to spar with her. Windwen, on the other hand, was much more polite. "I request guidance from my seniors," he said respectfully, quickly advancing. As for me, I walked steadily step by step, emitting a powerful aura. Facing me were 3 senior students, 2 were magic swordsmen, and the other wielded a bizarre weapon. It looked like 2 long and massive claw-like tools fitted over his hands. Seeing me approach, the senior with the steel claws initiated the attack. With a long howl, he soared into the air, arms outstretched, resembling a majestic sky eagle. The other 2 seniors swung their magical swords at me. These third-year seniors indeed possess skills far superior to our class. In an unknown match, I'd have the upper hand. But against 3, the odds were less certain. I sent several ice spikes towards the airborne senior, then lunged forward with a punch. The claws of the flying senior emanated twin bolts of lightning, shattering my ice spikes. He continued his descent towards me, but since I had taken a step forward, he aimed for my back. His relentless speed caught me off guard. My punch pushed back the left senior with the fire-enchanted sword but left me open to a pincer attack. Gritting my teeth, I shouted, "Wild wind and raging rain," and heavily punched the ground. My target was the senior right in front of me. Just as the energy from my wild god-dueling aura was about to burst from beneath him, sensing the energy fluctuations, he leaped away to avoid my strike. While he evaded the direct attack, he couldn't resist the aftershock. The ground exploded, and a tumultuous force carrying debris surged forward, engulfing both the senior I had initially repelled and the one who had jumped. Both frantically wielded their magic swords, defending against the onslaught of force and shrapnel. Though my wild wind and raging rain move was effective, I got hit by the senior from behind. As his claws grasped me, I jerked, deflecting much of his strength and releasing my wild god-dueling aura. A sharp pain followed by numbness pierced my back. His attack possessed the attribute of lightning. Suppressing a groan, I turned to grab his steel claws. This senior was incredibly agile. Despite his surprise at my resilience, he quickly evaded my counter, once again taking to the skies. I grunted in frustration, casting a flying spell on myself. Light as a feather, I dashed towards the 2 disoriented seniors. Although both were formidable magic swordsmen, they couldn't fend off my earlier foolin' assault and suffered minor injuries. One of my strengths was my potent aura. I had to defeat 2 of them before they regrouped. But my plan went awry when the airborne senior conjured a bolt of lightning. Caught off guard, the lightning hit me, paralyzing me momentarily. That's when my inner demon art came to the rescue. A cold sensation spread throughout my body, reviving me. Now, I looked quite the sight, my clothes torn and singed, hair standing on end. One of the magic swordsmen stepped forward. "Junior, concede. As strong as you are, against our combined efforts, you don't stand a chance." I stole a glance at Windwan and Fengwan. They were still engaged. Windwan, ever cunning, used his wind magic, avoiding direct confrontations and engaging in a game of cat and mouse. Fengwan, however, was terrifying, wielding her hammer like a raging tiger, creating a powerful whirlwind that the seniors couldn't subdue for the time being. I couldn't afford to give up now. Coldly, I declared, "Come on, I won't surrender." Wild wind and raging rain. Again, I slammed my fist into the ground. The 2 seniors in front retreated, trying to avoid my onslaught. But this time, my target wasn't them, it was the Skyhawk, the name I coined for the senior in the air. The senior who faced me just gave me a jolt, thinking I'd surely admit defeat. But he didn't anticipate my resilience. Just as I readied my next strike, the ground before him split open, and a powerful surge of energy rushed toward him. My body swiftly spun around, following the energy, charging at him at full speed. In this critical moment, this senior named Thunderhawk showcased his exceptional power. Retreating in the air, he chanted, "Summon the divine lightning from the 9 heavens, harness the sudden surge of the earth, arise now, barrier of azure thunder." Rapidly, a shimmering wall of lightning materialized before him, not only neutralizing my energy but also stopping every debris from crossing its boundary. As he shielded himself from my stormy onslaught, I arrived and delivered a heavy punch. Due to the wild god energy enveloped around my fist and the fact that his barrier of azure thunder was weakened from blocking my earlier attack, I easily broke through his defense. Thunderhawk crossed his talons in front of his chest, trying to deflect my punch. I snorted coldly, my energy exploding instantly. With a wretched scream, the senior was blown away by my force. He probably wouldn't be able to fight for days. I showed restraint, otherwise, even if he survived, his hands would surely be rendered useless. Strike me with lightning, will you? That's payback. All of this happened in a flash, and by the time the two seniors wielding magic swords came to, Thunderhawk had crashed heavily against the enchanted walls of the training ground. Having dealt with him, the situation became much easier. Just as I was about to face off against the other two seniors, Instructor Zhuang's voice rang out, Lei Xiang, cease your actions. You have won. I turned to see that Feng Wan's hammer had been knocked away, and she was now sitting on the ground, trying to gather her energy. Feng Wan wasn't in much better shape, his clothes were charred, much like mine, and he had lost a significant amount of hair. However, it wasn't from lightning but from fire. As it turned out, while Feng Wan was dodging and strategizing, believing he was unbeatable and only had to endure until I and Feng Wan were defeated, his arrogance angered his opponents. Two of them kept him busy while another, adept in fire magic, cast a high-level omnidirectional fire spell, overwhelming Feng Wan. The moment he was defeated coincided with Thunderhawk's defeat at my hands. Seeing my victory, Instructor Zhuang stopped the test out of concern for potential injuries. Thunderhawk bore the brunt of the injuries. After announcing that Feng Wan and I would represent our grade in the upcoming competition, Instructor Zhuang immediately used water magic to tend to his wounds. The two seniors who had faced me approached. The one who wielded the fire magic sword said, Junior, you're quite skilled. The three of us together couldn't defeat you. It seems the championship of your grade is yours for the taking. I respected the formidable strengths of the seniors and replied courteously, you all went easy on me. When the time comes, I'll need you to explain to Thunderhawk. I couldn't control my strength. The two seniors exchanged a glance and laughed. Thunderhawk is a fitting nickname for him. His real name is Pu Rui. He's the strongest among us, but since the two of us are weaker, we were grouped together for the grade competition. You'll probably face him again in the future, but don't worry, he won't blame you. He always appreciates making strong friends. I voiced my concern, will his injuries affect his participation in the competition? A senior responded, no, he's tough. And with Instructor Zhuang's healing, he'll be fine. Apart from a disgruntled Feng Wan leaving, the other students came to congratulate me and Feng Wan. Even Luo Lei came over and said, Lei Xiang, I admit I'm no match for you right now. But watch out, I'll keep improving and one day, I'll defeat you. I replied with a slight smile, I'm ready whenever you are. Thunderhawk's skills are worth your study. If not for some luck, I might not have bested him. Luo Lei's eyes brightened, and he walked away. Instructor Zhuang dismissed everyone, then called Feng Wan and me into his office. Smiling, he said, see? My judgment was spot on. I knew you two would outperform the rest. Feng Wan replied with a wry smile, Instructor, that was a tough victory. Look at Lei Xiang and me, we're both charred black. We both looked at each other, seeing the other's state, and burst out laughing. Instructor Zhuang continued, all right, enough laughing. I brought you here to offer some pointers on combat techniques. Realizing we were about to receive some invaluable lessons, Feng Wan and I immediately became serious. Instructor Zhuang continued, Feng Wan, do you know where you went wrong today? Feng Wan replied, puzzled, their magic was too powerful, especially that all-encompassing attack. I couldn't dodge it. Instructor Zhuang shook his head gently, that's not it. You lost because you weren't fast enough. Today, I'll teach you 3 words. If you fully grasp them, you'll be unbeatable. Excitedly, Feng Wan asked, which 3 words?